Welcome to East of Eden Readings. I'm your Chief Consultant, Reverend Locke, and tonight we're going to discuss the Sheriff's Root Part 2. Now I'm going to begin by reading an excerpt from out of the book Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, a 33rd degree Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite chapter of Freemasonry, from the chapter Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret, the 32nd degree. That's the second to the last degree that they can achieve. Remember, there's 360 degrees of knowledge, but for some reason they can only go up to the 33rd. That's for another video. But anyway, for the 32nd degree, the frozen chapter I discussed in one of my previous videos, because 32 degrees you're frozen, and 32 degrees they're frozen there also. But in any event, and I quote, "Magic is that which it is. It is by itself like the mathematics, for it is the exact and absolute science of nature and its laws. Magic is the science of the Ancient Magi. Magism was the science of Abraham, Moses, and revealed and purified this science." Moses did, by the way. "The secret science of the Ancient Magi was concealed under the shadows of the ancient mysteries, and it is found enveloped in the enigmas that seem impenetrable in the rites of the highest Masonry. The primary law, the single and absolute law of nature, that of the distinction and harmonious ponderation of the contrary forces in the universal equipoise. Tradition also gives these Magi the title of kings, because the grand art of the Magi is styled by all adepts the royal art, or the holy realm, or the holy empire, Sanctum Regnum in Latin, or kingdom of heaven." Again, and that is out of the books Morals and Dogma, chapter the 32nd degree, which is the last chapter in that book, the last degree, the 32nd degree, Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret, also known as the Sublime Prince of the Royal Art, the 32nd degree. Now I'm going to go in to 50 Years as a Low Country Witch Doctor by Sheriff J.E. McTeer. I'm going to read specifically the 9th chapter. And for this, I'm going to need my goggles, as my cousin so eloquently put it. And chapter 9 is entitled My Beliefs, meaning Sheriff McTeer's beliefs. Quote, "The study of witchcraft, astral and kinetic forces must exert a great influence on your thinking. Just what are your beliefs as to the universe, religion, and life after death?" Unquote. I have answered this question many times, for my mind is an inquiring one. My entire life has been spent close to nature and in dealing with all strata of society. I spent 37 years as a sheriff of Beaufort County, at a time when High Sheriff meant exactly that. This experience taught me to search for the truth, so that justice for all people was the rule and not the exception. I have to stop. Like I said, I have a great deal of respect for this man. Back in the early 1900s, with this philosophy and this mentality, in a time where, Reconstruction and Jim Crow was going on, he didn't have any prejudice. He just delved right in and wanted to help all in his community. But anyway, I have witnessed death in all its forms. Sordid, pathetic, beautiful. I knew I was looking at the seat of life when I helped a doctor with an autopsy and the brain was examined. And I wondered, is the Bible's version of the soul and its heavenly journey the answer? Or does the trumpet of Gabriel awakens us at the designated time? Is my religion the one the Lord prefers? Will Episcopalians get to heaven And if the Baptists and the Presbyterians are all non-Christians of the world wrong in the worship of their gods, when environment and custom over the ages has dictated their beliefs? Could it be possible? I think that all of us are right. That there is a supreme force, call it what you will, who guides our destinies, and that the true believer in Allah or Buddha will also be received by him. Even the Aborigines of Australia and the Kalahari Bushmen and Itu rainforest pygmies of Africa have their deities. I do not believe that they will be excluded, for they, like you and I, know beyond any doubt that a supreme force hovers over us all. I will go into this in more detail when I write about kinetic forces in witchcraft. Surely we are not so egotistic as to believe that we are the only intelligent beings in this vast universe with its millions of planets, many of them hundreds of times larger than the little rotating globe we inhabit. You all already know what I feel about that in the Anunnaki. I'm just baffled that back then this gentleman is also of sound knowledge into the same sphere, into the same beliefs that I have, that I also have. Scientists now know that all the elements which compromise life are out there in infinity. Have you read Gods from Outer Space by Daniken? He theorizes about visitations to this planet by other spacemen prior to our existence. Scientists who can lead men on the moon, split the atom, etc. cannot explain that Daniken's research shows they built while visiting here. We are still looking for explanations to these and 1,000 more monoliths, etc. left by civilizations lost in time or something else we can't comprehend. The late Mendel Rivers, chairman of the Armed Forces Committee for many years, was a personal friend of mine. Once when he and I were on a trip, I asked him, Mendel, tell me the facts about flying saucers from outer space and UFOs. If anyone would know the facts, he was the man who would. He knew of my interest in this phenomenon. Ed, he said, I know there is enough irrefutable evidence by top military men and others that there are flying saucers. But until we get conclusive evidence or actually get one in our possession for observation, or unless they show signs of hostility, I certainly am not going out on a limb on this. You see them, and then they're gone. They have been observed in many countries besides ours. There would be too much conjecture by everyone, so we won't rock the boat. But I'll let the public know immediately if I ever think they pose the least threat to us. Figments of vivid imaginations which we believed were for our amusement, because reality, Buck Rogers, comics, Jules Verne's Nautilus, and Star Trek have all become reality and have been surpassed by present-day scientists. Fables and myths, which have been handed down from generation to generation, are now in many instances the basis for exploration and archaeologists' excavations. Excuse me. The lost city of Atlantis is now accepted as fact, not fiction. Where will the discovery of the laser beam take us? Even now, delicate eye operations are performed with it. Yet it can cut through steel plate as if it were butter. It can probe the universe. Will this be our means of communication with other planets? It is in its infancy. With nations seeking world domination, the possibility of scientists creating a death ray from the laser beam is a reality. The atom and the laser harnessed could certainly make this a better world for all people. But unless man's mind can be harnessed, oblivion is a possibility. But the complexity of the brain makes this impossible. Surely the scribes who gave us our Bible, which I agree is the greatest book ever written, were guided by a force or forces which were not from this planet. This book encompasses life, death, and the hereafter. It gives those who believe its words a meaningful life if they follow its tenets. Yet, like all regulations or all religions, it is based on faith, miracles, magic, and myths. Next to the Bible, the two most important documents we inherit were the Ten Commandments and the marriage contract. Analyze the Ten Commandments. Why? If man's mind would really accept them, the earth could well be the heaven we all long for. Lions, and indeed most of the inhabitants of the animal kingdom, have always marked their territory and controlled it through strength. With cornerstones and a deed, man defines his holdings. Man-made laws protect him. But as man advanced on the long road to civilization, the wise men saw that the law of the jungle and might makes right could no longer be condoned. Interbreeding and incest will produce inferior humans. Man now tilled the land. He was no longer a nomad. To accomplish this successfully, the marriage contract was written, and the word family had meaning. The 20th century finds us at the peak of our civilization. Or did we reach it some years ago and now are reverting to the law of the jungle? Many are turning away from all religion. Atheism and communism teach that there is no hereafter, that death is final. Foolish mortals. That death is final. Is the final, the end. So live your life to its fullest, it says. Take what you will, for man-made laws cannot cope with the masses in hysteria. Like Aleister Crowley says, his number one rule is, do as thou wilt, is the whole of the law. Jails cannot be built fast enough to hold the criminals who say, quote, the world owes me a living, unquote. And as our world gives them this living, incentive is killed in the law-abiding citizen, and we head for disaster. As the witch doctor looks at this world, he is truly confused. He asks himself if their God, who sees even the fall of a sparrow, is witnessing what is taking place on earth. Why doesn't he just tip the globe a little and let the evil fly off to damnation and the good go to a new planet in his universe? All wars are man-made. One follows another. The thin veneer of civilization is quickly shed when man engages in warfare. I concur wholeheartedly. I have to stop right there because I've been studying World War I and World War II extensively. And when I found out how much people were involved, how much people died, I'm not going to lie, I shook my head in disgust how foolish the human race is. We have serious problems as a race of humans. And I'm not talking about Africans, Anglo-Saxons, Asians. I'm talking about as Homo sapien. We're foolish. Anywho, it is any wonder that man's inhumanity to man is vividly portrayed by television in past and recent conflicts. Lebanon, Vietnam, etc. cannot be understood by the African witch doctors who have never put on the veneer of civilization, for he must placate his gods before he asks them to assist him. He is the oldest profession in the world. Observing Christianity. Notice, he said that's the oldest profession in the world. He did not say prostitution is the oldest profession, because many of you believe that prostitution is the oldest in the world, occupation in the world, and it's not. Magic, the magician, the magus, the proverbial witch doctor is the oldest profession in the world, not prostitution and pimping. Again, you foolish mortals. Observing Christianity, He decides that if his ancestors had passed on to him the power of help his friends and hurt his enemies by use of spirits, he would not betray their trust. An African witch doctor never tries to convert anyone to his beliefs. That is a fact. If you are in need of his service, you must seek him. To be effective in this practice of witchcraft, you must make the person seeking your help believe that you have the power to invoke the astral forces to assist you with their problems. Many of you call them ancestors. The ancient Egyptians called them the Teru. Anunnaki, from the Sumerians. You know, the Yoruba call them the ancestors. You know, Obatala, what's her name? Yimiya, so forth and so on. But anyway, as your fame spreads, every strata of society with all the problems besetting mankind will seek your counsel and cure. Some are skeptical. If you cannot answer their questions intelligently, your efficacy is over. As you have seen in the earlier chapters of this book, any subject dealing with the unknown or supernatural interests me. Yes, I believe that ESP is inherent in all of us. In all of us. Not just me, not just him, not just the Dr.Buzzard. All of us. Yes, I believe that ESP is inherent in all of us. But that some have the ability to develop it to a higher degree than others. Reincarnation, I believe, is possible for some spirits. The two best examples proven beyond a doubt by scientists are Arrigo, surgeon of the Rusty Knife, Reader's Digest 1975, and Casey. I'm assuming he's talking about Edgar Casey, whose diagnosis and predictions astounded the scientific world. There are many others. Supernatural forces are around us. Some of us can see them or feel their presence. Ghosts, poltergeists, familiars, and other manifestations have been thoroughly investigated and not disproved. All primitive people of the world believe that their bodies and minds can be possessed by evil forces. Doctors and psychiatrists now know that there is an occult explosion taking place in the world, and they are not prepared to cope with generations of superstitions and beliefs. The African witch doctor can, however, for through the years he has been there to help. The people who seek his help believe in him, but of even more importance, the witch doctor believes in his own powers, and truly believing, he imparts this confidence to his clients. It reminds me of back in the days in 1985 when G.I. Joe used to come on, and at the end they used to give you, like, you know, these things one to grow on to educate the child watching the cartoon, and at the end they would say something like, and knowing is half the battle. But anyway, all primitive people of the world believe that their bodies and minds can be possessed by evil forces. Okay, where was I? The people who seek his help believe in him. Okay, where? Being involved with researching and studying the practice of witchcraft has certainly been a fascinating experience for me. It has led me on long journeys of the mind into the universe, infinity, and the human brain. Having touched on the universe and my beliefs in preceding chapters, infinity now boggles the mind. With their limited ability to penetrate and study the heavens with observatories and rockets and the study of matter from the moon, will scientists ever be sure of the beginning of the universe? They have their theories, the one most accepted being the Big Bang Theory. Now, of course, I don't believe that. But in his defense, this was written back in 1970. It was published back in 1974. This is 2022. So I'm pretty sure that this intellectual sheriff, if be it that he was alive today, he would also have changed his view. I can assure you of that. But anyway, being the Big Bang Theory, where gases formed out of nothingness, exploded, and the universe was created, and that out there in the void is the dark hole, like a whirlpool, sucking everything in its vortex to go where? Someone wrote, infinity can best be described as something which cannot be added to or subtracted from. This definition satisfies me, and death will give us all the answers if the great force who hovers over us so desires. Like I say, energy cannot be destroyed. It's only transferred from one place to another. The word spirit is Greek for energy. So when the spirit leaves this body, it can never be destroyed. It's only transferred from one place to another. And in my beliefs, your entity, your spirit, lodges on the female side of your family in her fallopian tube, so you can be reincarnated. And we reincarnate over and over and over again on our female side of the family. We have always been here, and we will always be here. I mean, we have always existed, and we will always exist. Realizing my inadequacies in practicing the art of witchcraft, and to enhance my knowledge, I have studied the beliefs and practices of many primitive tribes. I was searching to see if there were a common denominator which could explain how the shamans or witch doctors of these tribes, thousands of miles apart, could use virtually the same method of healing, casting out evil and other rituals. No two witch doctors use exactly the same formula. Hundreds of witch doctors on the vast continent of Africa have their own secrets, handed down to them by their ancestors. The Nenga of some tribes throws some bones he carries. The pattern they fall in on the ground tells him the story. Another tribe's witch doctor smells out the one who is guilty or who is possessed. But the common denominator I found is that they all know there are good and evil forces abroad in the universe, and that there is a power up there to whom they turn. Another thing that the 32nd degree elaborates on, and let you know that there is no such thing as a demon of injustice that is taking over man or in constant conflict with God. For the truth of the matter is that there are equal opposing forces. That there cannot be no light without darkness. There cannot be no up without down. There can't be no male without female. Thus, there can't be no evil without good. And that is also in the 32nd degree, the frozen degree. What up? Chilling. But I'm going to defrost all of you. Anywho, anything that is abnormal in the human or animal kingdom quickly draws my interest. Some scientific explanations satisfy me. Others do not. Why do schools of pilot whales called Ka whales in Scotland, which start their migration in the northern regions, stop by the shores of Scotland to rest before arriving at the shores of the Americas? Some whales apparently end their journey by committing suicide on Atlantic beaches. Science attributes this to parasites in the whale's air. I think and believe that thousands of years of genetics is making these whales follow a path or course which they followed through the ages when the oceans covered the earth. Pangea. Anyway, like I said again, this is a very, very intelligent man. I see why they named a bridge after him. They need to name a street after him. Anyway, I think and believe that thousands of years of genetics is making these whales follow a path of course which they followed through the ages when the oceans covered the earth. Much as birds follow their same migratory routes, much as the same as birds follow the same migratory routes. Certain wild animals occasionally lose their patterns of behavior to which they are supposed to conform. The rogue elephant in Must runs amok, destroying everything in sight until it is killed. This may be explained perhaps as may be the behavior of the lion, tiger, or leopard, which forsakes the instincts of generations of hunting game to become a man killer. In most instances, this can be attributed to infirmity or a crippling wound. I mention these to show that the animal, man, can also have mental aberrations that need an explanation and which science has not explained. A man in the Philippines is in his middle years. Up to now, he has been an average citizen. No arrest mar his record. His has been a normal life. And then, with no warning, he binds his arteries so that he will not bleed freely. And taking his machete, goes into town and kills until he is killed. American servicemen saw this phenomenon many times. Because of this, the .45 caliber pistol was made. Telling you why the .45 caliber pistol was made. The impact of this bullet would at least knock its victim down. A smaller caliber bullet allowed him to continue his massacre after he had been shot many times. Far away in Malaya, the identical phenomena takes place. The word Malay is derived from the word Malu, meaning gentle, and yet a gentle man, usually around 45 of age, suddenly goes berserk, takes his weapon, and kills his loved ones and friends. The natives, seeing a man in this state, cry out the warning, amok, which literally means a killer is loose. So when somebody says somebody's running amok, that means a killer is loose. Literally. In Java, and the Malaya, as in Malaya, the people are known for their good manners and gentleness. Yet the identical occurrence takes place. In Java, they say the victim's eyes turn dark, and the sickness is called mata kalep. What are the genes that set this sickness affect only the male? Notice that females don't do these things. You don't see females grabbing guns and shooting up malls or schools or clubs or none of that. There's something going on in the male mind and the male unconscious that men are doing this. Again, I've never heard an incident where a woman is going around shooting up children in schools or in a club or in a church for that matter, or shooting in crowds. Yeah, we have a lot of Karens, but Karens are using lip profession. They're not grabbing weapons and killing anybody. Amok was seldom heard in this country until the 20th century, meaning America. It was confined to the Asian archipelagos and the Philippines. Now a week seldom goes by that there is not a story in the news reporting someone in a tower with a rifle who shoots everyone in sight, and similar happenings all over our country. Remember, this was published back in 1974. This is 2022, and the same things are happening back then are happening now. More and more people and even nations can be said to be running amok. We are running amok. The line between sanity and insanity is indeed a thin one. When you think of the pressures exerted upon an average mind today, it is easy to understand why. When their world crumbles, they need a crutch. Many then turn to the witch doctor or the shaman, who understands how demons can penetrate one's mind and body, and which may be beyond the comprehension of college-trained psychiatrists and physicians. And, like I said, I can't emphasize that enough. And I read that chapter specifically for one reason, because of the end. And that all these mass shootings that are going on, you know, like I said again, that book was published in 1974. And them same atrocities are happening today. But notice one thing, one point. Again, it isn't women that are doing these things. What do you think? Peace, this is East of Eden Readings. I'm Reverend Rock, and enjoy this video. Subscribe and like. This is the first time I've ever said that. I don't like to beg for stuff. But hey, just like and subscribe. Peace. And I love y'all. I'm out.